And then I'll start recording. It's recording.
Okay. Alright, boys and girls. Today we're going to be reading a story. After the story, we're going to be able to tell the beginning, middle, and end of the story. Our story today is called Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs. Raise your hand if you've ever read this story before. Okay? Alright. Well, we need all to be listening very, very good, because at the end, like I said, we're going to have our activity. So, Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs, written by Judy Barrett and drawn by Ron Barrett. I'm going to read you a page, and then I'm going to let you see it, okay? So don't have to see the pictures. I'm going to show them to you. We were all sitting around the big kitchen table. It was Saturday morning, pancake morning. Mama was squeezing oranges for juice. Henry and I were betting on how many pancakes we could eat, and Grandpa was doing the flipping. What's Grandpa flipping? Pancakes. Very good. Seconds later, something flew through the air, headed toward the kitchen ceiling, and landed right on Henry. After we realized that the flying object was only a pancake, we all laughed. Even Grandpa. Breakfast continued quite uneventfully. All the other pancakes landed in the pan, and all of them were eaten, even the one that landed on Henry. So they ate the one that landed on Henry.
Yeah.
That night, touched off by the pancake incident, at breakfast, Grandpa told us the best tall tale of bedtime story he'd ever told. Across an ocean, over lots of huge bumpy mountains, across 3 hot deserts and 1 small ocean, there was a tiny town called Chew and Swallow.
Come on.
In most ways, it was very much like any other town. It had a main street lined with stores, houses, trees, and gardens around them, and they even had a schoolhouse, and about 300 people and some sort of cats and dogs. But there was no food stores in the town of Chew and Swallow. Why do you think there was no food stores? Think about it for a second. Anybody think of anything why they wouldn't need? What do you think, Andre?
Because they don't have no food to eat.
Okay. You think maybe they have gardens or something? Victor, what do you think? Alright, well, let's find out. He said they didn't need any stores. The sky supplied all the food that they could possibly need. The only thing that was really different about Chew and Swallow was the weather. It came 3 times a day. It came at breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Everything that everyone ate came from the sky. Yes, sorry.
They don't need any stores.
Whatever the weather served, that's what they ate. But it never rained, it never snowed, and it never just blew in. It rained things like soup. It rained things like soup and juice. It snowed mashed potatoes and green peas, and sometimes the wind blew storms of hamburgers. See right here? This is the soup and the juice, and here's the snow of peas and mashed potatoes, and here's the hamburger clouds.
That's that's random. Hamburgers. Those look like a lot.
Alright.
I eat hamburgers.
Hi.
Okay.
The people could watch the weather report on television in the morning, and they would even hear the prediction for the next day's food. When the townspeople went inside, they carried their plates, cups, glasses, forks, spoons, knives, and napkins with them. That way, they could always be prepared for any kind of weather. If there were leftovers, and there usually was, the people took them home and put them right in the refrigerators in case they got hungry between meals. So look right here. This one right here, it's rain pancakes.
No.
Right here we have pie. This guy has an umbrella that's full of soup, and he's drinking out of it with a... What is he drinking out of it with?
Umbrella.
What is he drinking with?
Sugar juice.
What do you drink with? A straw. Very good, girl.
That one too.
Very good.
A straw.
The menu varied, By the time they woke up in the morning, breakfast was coming down. After a brief shower of orange juice, clouds, and of sunny side up eggs moved in and followed the pieces of toast, butter and jelly sprinkled down for the toast, and most of the time it rained afterwards. For lunch one day, frankfurters. Let's talk for a second. Frankfurters are like hot dogs. Okay? So it says for lunch one day, frankfurters, which are hot dogs, already in their rolls, blew in from the northwest about 5 miles per hour. There were the mustard clouds nearby, and when the wind shifted to the east and brought in baked beans, a drizzle of soda finished off the meal. I'm glad we went to lunch because this book kind of makes me hungry. Alright. Dinner one night consisted of lamb chops, becoming heavy at times with occasional ketchup. Periods of peas and baked potatoes were followed by a gradual clearing of a wonderful Jell-O setting in the way. Look at this big mountain of Jell-O.
Me too.
Alright. The sanitation department of Chew and Swallow had a rather unusual job. They had to remove all the food that fell on the houses and sidewalks and lawns. The workers cleaned up things after every meal and fed all the dogs and cats. When they emptied some of it into the surrounding oceans for the fish and turtles and whales to eat, the rest of the food was put back on Earth so that the soil would be richer for people's flower gardens. So you can see their cleanup trucks. Miss Jada. Pay attention. Across the way. Life for the townspeople was delicious until the weather took a turn for the worse. Alright, so let's think right quick. If it says the weather took a turn for the worse, something went wrong. Think to ourselves right quick. What could have gone wrong? Put your hands down. Think. I want you to turn and tell your neighbor what you think could have gone wrong. I need to hear people talking.
I think it rained water.
Alright, let's see what happened. Class, class, class?
Yes.
Very good. Let's listen and find out. One day there was nothing but gorgonzola cheese all day long. Gorgonzola cheese is smelly, so all it did was stink up the whole town all day long. The next day there was only broccoli, and it was overcooked. And the next day there were Brussels sprouts with peanut butter and mayonnaise. Another day there was pea soup fog. Nobody could see where they were going, and they could barely find the rest of the meal that got stuck in the fog. See? So here's the stinky cheese, and there's the broccoli, right here, right here. See everybody holding their nose? The food was getting bigger and bigger, and so were the portions. The people were getting frightened. Violent storms blew up frequently. Awful things were happening. One Tuesday, there was a hurricane of bread and rolls all day long. To help out, the people piled up as much bread as they could in their backyards. The birds picked up the rolls and ate it, but it just stayed there and got stale from what they couldn't eat. There was a storm of pancakes one morning and a downpour of maple syrup that nearly flooded the whole town. A huge pancake covered the school. No one could get it off because its weight, so they had to close school. What if you guys came to school one day and saw a pancake sitting on top of the school? Could you imagine? They had to close their school down because there was a pancake covering the school. They couldn't get in the door. Lunch one day brought 15-inch strips of cream cheese and jelly sandwiches. Everyone ate themselves sick, and the day ended with a stomachache. There was an awful salt and pepper wind accompanied by a even worse tomato tornado. People were sneezing themselves silly and running to avoid the tomatoes. The town was a mess. There were seeds and pulp everywhere. So, at the beginning, it started off pretty nice. They had all the food they could eat. But then what's happening? Do you think things are going bad? Do you think they like the weather now?
No. Because it's okay.
The sanitation department gave up. The job was just too big. Everyone was scared for their lives. They couldn't go outside most of the time. Many houses had been badly damaged by giant meatballs. Stores were boarded up, and there was no more school for the children. So a decision had to be made. Everyone had to leave the town of Chew and Swallow. It was a matter of survival. So everybody's running for their lives. They can't live there anymore. I wonder how they're going to go to a new place.
In a car?
The people glued together a giant piece of stale bread that had a sandwich with peanut butter. It took absolute necessity. They took their absolute necessities with them and set sail on their rafts for new land. So let's look at this picture right here. It says that they used a stale sandwich with peanut butter. What is the top part of their boat made out of?
Cheese.
After being at the ocean for over a week, they finally reached a small town which welcomed them. The bread had held up surprisingly well enough for them to build temporary houses out of it. So you can see in this picture right here, they've built their houses out of their boats. Tyreek. Hands them up. The children began school again, and the adults all tried to find a place for themselves in the new land. The biggest change that they had to make was getting used to buying food at the supermarket. They found it odd that food was kept on the shelves, packaged in boxes, cans, and bottles. Meat that had to be cooked was kept in refrigerators. Nothing came down from the sky except for rain and snow. The clouds above their heads were not made of eggs. No one ever got hit by a hamburger again. You think they're kind of sad that they don't have their food and their weather now?
No.
No, they might be. And nobody dared to go back to Chew and Swallow to find out what happened because they were all too afraid. So it says, Henry and I were awake until the end of Grandpa's story. I remember his kiss goodnight. The next morning we woke up to see the snow falling outside our window. We ran downstairs for breakfast and ate a little bit faster than usual so we could go sledding with Grandpa. It's funny, even as we were sliding down the hill, we thought we saw a giant pat of butter at the top, and we could almost smell mashed potatoes. So what do they think now? They heard Grandpa's story. What did they think? What is all this right here?
No.
No. And they said they see butter. So this is snow in the sun. You see the mashed potatoes with the butter on them?
Yes.
Okay. Alright. Alright. When I ask you to go back to your seat, I need you to pull out